Man could write a letter.
Sorry.
Hey. Well, have a nice life, Kim.
Jimmy's carefree affirmations that everything's going just peachy make Kim uneasy, and the gulf between the two only grows as their career paths diverge further and further throughout Jimmy's one-year suspension. Taking a job at a cell phone store, Jimmy finds himself unable to resist a good hustle, and soon starts buying prepaid burners in bulk, then reselling them as drop phones on the mean streets of ABQ, all under his former Cicero alias, Saul Goodman. Meanwhile, Kim finds herself bored and disillusioned with the endless grind of bank expansions. Although I think your bank models are cool, Kevin, and don't let anybody tell you different. Wanting to reinvigorate her passion in her line of work, Kim begins taking on pro bono public defender work, helping those who can't help themselves. You might think this is headed in a cliche direction. Kim's karma meter is going up, while Jimmy's is going down, and soon they'll be incompatible. But the real conflict is a lot smarter than that. In order to make more free time to continue her pro bono work, Kim joins the firm of Schweikart and Coakley and brings Mesa Verde along with her, crushing Jimmy's spirit. He had this old girlfriend hypothetical question thing of, how long would you wait for me to wake up if I was in a coma? But with, how long would you wait to reopen the law office with me instead? And Kim didn't even hold out a year. And then he ropes Kim into a scheme to get his bodyguard Huel out of some hot water with the cops by fabricating a story that he's a hometown hero, creating the illusion that his trial will become a PR nightmare and a circus more trouble than it's worth to host.
I have one question for you, Miss Erickson. Are you prosecuting Santa Claus?
Your Honor?
Because it looks like Miracle on 34th Street in you.
Instead of the two drifting further apart, the absurd and infectiously fun plot puts a spark back in the relationship as they rediscover their shared passion for running cons. However, this is what puts a spark back in their relationship doesn't sit well with Jimmy. He may have sworn off letting Chuck's disapproving voice worm its way into his head, but he can't help but suspect the next person he's closest to is harboring similar, uncharitable ideas about the kind of person he is. You're the kind of lawyer guilty people hire. You're slipping Jimmy. When he fails to mention his brother at his reinstatement hearing, he's denied, and all the subtle doubts and frustrations from both sides of their relationship that have been seeded throughout the season come messily spilling out. It's one of the most true-to-life couple fights I've ever seen on screen. It's not an overwrought end of Act 2 instigation to a temporary breakup, but an understandable confrontation that's been years in the making. It also has that perfect touch where some of Jimmy's frustrations and doubts are perfectly justified, but also in the heat of the moment, he's directing unwarranted anger with his current misfortune at Kim without any real justification, just blind lashing out. It is a gripping shouting match.
There you go. Kick him in when he's down.
Jimmy, you are always down.
Despite the momentary hostility, it's clear the two have feelings for each other that transcend the tribulations of Jimmy's no-good, very bad year, and the two make one final push to get Jimmy reinstated via appeal in the Season 4 finale. My personal favorite episode of the series, Winner. The episode opens with a flashback to a karaoke bar where the HHM staff celebrate Jimmy passing the bar. Noticing Chuck is about to make a goodbye so Irish its name ought to start with an O, Jimmy invites him on stage to sing The Winner Takes It All with him. While initially reluctant, Chuck eventually steals the mic and finally indulges in the fun. The Chuck haters read this scene as just, look at Chuck, always out to steal Jimmy's thunder, but really it's more of a successful con. Jimmy's most kind-hearted and innocent con to date, tricking his reclusive, uptight brother into finally cutting loose and having some fun with the people he works with, Picard at the poker table style. Just like how he made strides to goad his brother back into the legal world in Season 1. 4 years of learning to hate Chuck's guts, and then they drop this blissful moment of brotherly love on us. That's just great.
Play by the rules. The gods may throw the dice.
In the present day, Jimmy sits on an HHM scholarship board selecting candidates, championing a student who was once busted for shoplifting but has since turned her life around, for obvious reasons. Unable to sway the board, he gives his preferred candidate what is intended to be a motivational pep talk to let her down easy, but the undercurrents of vindictiveness are all too apparent. He's despairing at the prospect of not having his law license reinstated, but if he does miraculously pull it off, it's clear that Gimme Jimmy, the lawyer you could trust, is now fueled by as much envy and spite as his late brother, just without the legal inhibitions.
And the higher you rise, the more they're gonna hate you. Good. You rub their noses in it. You make them suffer. Remember, the winner takes it all.
And at the end of the day, he wins the day by insincerely appearing to be as sincere as the hearing panel wanted. Hey, hard to feel like he's the bad guy there. He was sincere the first time around and they didn't accept it. If you wanted a show, say less. Give him the old razzle-dazzle. The unexpected sucker for this little performance is Kim Wexler, relieved and touched at what she believes is Jimmy's true feelings, only to learn she fell for the flim-flam flummox. Despite his touching words about bringing pride to the name McGill, Jimmy's first order of business after being reinstated is to pick up a doing business as form. All his drop phone buddies know him as Saul Goodman, so presto changeo.
Wait, Jimmy, what?
It's all good, man.
Of course, the man who would be Saul's storyline is only half of what makes Winner such a winner. But I've got a lot of underground ground to cover on Mike and Gus's storyline before I gush about the crushing and magnificent ending. As we know from Breaking Bad, Gus isn't in the meth business or the money business, he's in the revenge business. And he's none too pleased with Nacho when he learns the young upstart nearly denied him his opportunity to play with his food. With the truth of Hector's stroke as blackmail, Gus can now use Nacho as a mole within the Salamanca operation.
From now on, you are mine.
But Secret Agent Nacho won't have any serious assignments until next year. In Season 4, it's more about Mike and the project he's overseeing, the construction of Gus's underground meth lab. It's a common problem with prequels that they assume backstories are inherently interesting just because they're backstories, the assumption that lore is interesting regardless of context. So it's a triumph that Mike overseeing a clandestine German construction crew building an underground meth lab is fascinating as all get out. I enjoy every aspect of it. The peculiar and amusing concept of building a tiny town to house a construction crew that they cannot leave under threat of death.
A whole tiny town.
There's the obvious continuation of Mike's meticulous nature, the sally port with guards on top of guards and security cameras, but also the accommodations to keep the rowdy crowds appeased. There's the needlessly tense scene, executed like a detonation is inevitably going to go off wrong when it never actually does. Real anti-Hitchcock stuff. I dreaded a bang that eventually went according to plan. And in the end, the one to fly the coop isn't the hot-headed Kai, but the affable Werner. Some people thought the character was a fool for breaking out and expecting to live, but he fires back that he knew Mike would begrudgingly forgive him. And Mike would, if it were up to him, and I believe even Frayne would, through gritted teeth, if very specific circumstances hadn't arisen with the arrival of another Salamanca in town. The final goodbye where Mike realizes the most humane thing he can do is capitulate and finally be the one to pull the trigger is heartbreaking.
There are so many stars visible in New Mexico. I will walk out there to get a better look.
The whole construction side plot is such an odd, unique, fascinating storyline. Building this pseudo-prison to both contain and entertain the inhabitants while they do your dirty work. It tickles that little part of your brain that fantasizes about living off-grid in a van late at night, until you realize how much you like a hot shower and snap out of it.
Guten Abend.
If I didn't make it clear, Season 4 is art. And with Jimmy adopting the Saul Goodman persona and Mike killing in the name of the Fring Empire against his own wishes, both men have made major decisions they can't come back from. So, in conclusion, I have one stupid nitpick. Gus goes to all this trouble to find an underground lab engineer without revealing the details of his grander operation. Flies them to Denver, they drive a drop car to the middle of nowhere, put a bag on their head, then get loaded into a truck, travel 6 hours, and then as soon as they get out of the truck, he immediately introduces himself by his full name.
Gustavo Fring. Es freut mich, Ihre Bekanntschaft zu machen.
If I were Mike, I would have slapped my head so hard my hair would have come back. You're going to all this trouble to conceal your employer's location, only for him to immediately open with his incredibly distinctive name, which would also reveal the location of the construction site with a quick Ask Jeeves, since he's a well-known public figure tied to a specific geographic region. So yeah, all in all, Season 4 has some of the strongest character work I've ever seen. Gorgeous cinematography, and one of the most emotionally impactful finales of all time. But Gus should have introduced himself as Mr. X or Mr. Pink or something, so overall, probably 3 out of 10.
South wall pouring concrete. What's he up to, man? What's he doing?
We got a little tease of Better Call Saul's big bad guy, Lalo Salamanca, in the